So yeah, I played the meme game, and guess what? It's my game of the year, even though I really haven't played that many games this year, or at least games that came out this year. But I find it amazing that I played Baldur's Gate 3, and a game that had millions and millions of dollars behind it, and a huge studio, and a team of writers, had such awful writing that I had to put down the game, and I'm never playing it again, most likely. Yet this game, this stupid meme game that's been going around, that was made by one person, probably has some of the best writing I've seen in a horror game in years. So let's talk about it. Now, this isn't going to be a full in depth analysis just yet. I'm going to wait for more of the chapters to come out, which will hopefully be soon. Um, so, if you haven't heard of this game, you've probably heard of the controversy around it about certain themes that are in the game that are getting a lot of the, I'd call them the safe, edgy crowd online mad because, they're used to making jokes about British people and French people and having the whole be gay, do crime thing. So when something that comes along that's actually edgy and actually offends their sensibilities, they freak out. Well, I kind of had to check it out, and we'll get to that later. But so a brief overview, if you really don't know anything about the game, which again a lot of people probably don't and haven't played it, they've only heard the controversy and said, I'm going to move on. The Coffin of Andy and Leyley uh, is a how do I even put this? It's a RPG Maker horror game that emphasizes on psychological horror and I guess I would say relationship horror because the horror in the game does not come from the fact that your characters are cannibalistic demon worshippers. Well, they don't really worship demons, but they do use satanic rituals to kill people. No, it comes from the fact that you slowly learn that that your protagonists are completely and utterly insane, and so let's get into it a bit. The game starts with the titular Andy and Leyley are in their parents' apartment during what happens to be a quarantine because of a certain pandemic. Though in this world, the pandemic is caused by parasites in the water supply, which I'm not that familiar about how parasites work, but I don't think they can spread like a virus. But everybody in their apartment building has been locked in, and their parents have left. It's been 3 months, and they're just about out of food. They are starving, they're thin, and they're tired. And the warden, there are wardens that are walking up and down the hallways, but they're locked in their apartment, who keep saying, "Oh, I'm going to bring you food. You guys better behave." But food never comes, and they start hearing weird music from their neighbor next door. And they look in, and their neighbor is performing a satanic ritual because he's so desperate to get out before he starves to death that he's willing to make a pact with Satan or some form of demon in order to get out. Of course, the monkey paw curls, and he says, "All I want is to get out." Well, the demon kills him, so I guess he got out. But now, Andy and Leyley, Ashley and Andrew are their names, have discovered a new source of food, and we start learning that something is very off with the characters beyond that can't just be explained by the fact that they're starving. I guess you could justify them resorting to cannibalism if they're like, well, we're going to die. We're going to die if we don't eat something. But Leyley, the girl, seems a little too enthusiastic and very nonchalant about eating their neighbor. And so they chop him up and they eat his arm or one of his limbs for dinner. And Andrew seems completely disgusted yet is still able to go along with it. Leyley just seems perfectly happy and wants her brother to be appreciative of her cooking. So you start realizing, okay, these people aren't that normal. And then we kind of get a dream sequence or a flashback to when they were children where it's very clear that Ashley, who's the younger sister, as is shown on the screen, is incredibly possessive of Andrew, who, anytime a girl enters his life, she freaks out and does not want him to have anything to do with her. She even had a very good friend named Nina who had a crush on Andy, and to ensure that she never was able to get her hands on Andy, that he would only belong to Leyley, they said, "Oh, I'm gonna lock her. We're gonna play hide and seek in this old abandoned warehouse where there's a big trunk, and I'm gonna lock her in there." And now initially she's just like, "Well, we're just gonna do it overnight." But obviously, what ends up happening is they lure her into the box, and she dies overnight because she has asthma. And again, Andrew is freaked out, yet still goes along with what Ashley wants, and she doesn't care at all. And so we really learn that these people don't have empathy towards other people, which really is quite terrifying. But flash forward back to the present day, and they're able to... they realize that, well, now with their neighbor dead, the warden is going to come in and collect the body, because they're trying to find who's dead, and we kind of learn that this is all actually like an organ harvesting operation, that they're just starving these people to death, which would probably damage the organs anyways, and they wouldn't be as good. But, and that's why they're all locked in. But I think a lot of the broader kind of world that they're living in is something that'll get explained in further episodes. So they lure that warden in, who's about to kill Ashley, and Andrew kills him with his meat cleaver. And again, the thing is, like, he realizes that what he's done is awful, but he doesn't really feel bad about it. His bigger concern is him and his sister not getting in trouble for it, or not getting arrested for it. So they escape, and more relationship drama between the two ensues because of the fact that once they get out, they realize there's a girl living in the floor below them that they used to lure the other warden to kill him. And again, Ashley thinks that, oh, Andrew's gonna, sleep with her, or is trying to get with her, and she only wants Andrew. And there's a scene where Andrew begins choking Ashley, and she's like, "You don't even have the guts." Because Andrew is a very, very passive, submissive character that will always kind of go along with what Ashley wants. But the second that he actually shows some form of dominance, she starts freaking out, and her personality changes. And again, you really notice that this is a very, very toxic relationship. And this is where the crux of the gameplay, or not the gameplay, the story is. It's not the demons, it's not the any supernatural elements, it's not the survival, it's not even what they do, it's who they are and who they are to each other. That they feed into each other in this very bad loop where Ashley is super possessive of Andy, who in turn is so submissive, at least towards her, that it feeds into her and she becomes more possessive because she knows she'll always get his attention. Whereas he can be normal, perhaps maybe not dominant or aggressive or assertive, but act fairly normal towards other people, which really shows that Ashley is more of a psychopath and Andrew is a sociopath. That Ashley doesn't really know what morals are, or that you're expected to follow basic, like, social mores, whereas Andrew does, and still just chooses not to follow them ultimately. That he'll follow these laws because society expects him to, but not because he actually believes in them. Which really makes him probably the more dangerous of the two, because you could notice that Ashley's nuts from a mile away. Andrew could just kind of worm his way into your life, and you wouldn't even know that he's, like, at least his soul isn't human. So, speaking of not human and souls, is the demon that they summon, because they use him to kill the wardens by saying, "Oh, we'll give you their souls in order to, if you'll, like, kill them for us." The demon gives gives Leyley this talisman that for every soul she brings him, she can have a clairvoyant dream that can tell the future. So she does that, and they're able to escape the apartment, and they have to be on the run now because, they've also realized that their parents obviously hate them because they abandoned them, and they kind of knew that this quarantine was BS anyway. Or at least as far as we know. Or at least as much as I think is implied. And so they are living alone for about a week, or living in a motel for about a week, and they start realizing that Ashley has a dream where a hitman is going to kill both of them in their sleep. So what she does is they go out one night to try and lure him out, and so they don't die. And then they discover there's also like this bigger group of cultists, and Andrew sneaks in and just kind of investigates it. But I think it's, again, something that's going to be saved for later episodes because it's got to be something bigger. But they're not the ones that send the hitman. The water company that is allegedly responsible for the parasite that made them get quarantined in the first place sent out a hitman to try and kill them because they don't want any of this getting out. So they end up killing the hitman as well. And now they're trying to figure out what to do because now they've got his stolen car, so they got to figure out how to get more money. And Ashley, without a thought, says, let's just rob our parents. And Andrew's like, that's a terrible idea, we shouldn't do that. But in typical Andrew fashion, whatever, I'm going to go along with it anyways. Because, again, you can understand that they hate their parents, presumably with some good reason, but we'll get to that. And we'll get to, like, kind of the why of things a little later. I'm just going through a basic overview of what happens in the first 2 episodes. So they drive to their parents' house late at night, and then wait for when they think their parents are going to be away at work. And Ashley then gets the idea, well, I need more souls so I can have more clairvoyant dreams. I'm going to sacrifice our parents. And she convinces Andy, because she's extremely manipulative as well, and that's what's interesting, is that, again, Andrew is not an idiot. He's actually probably incredibly intelligent, and so he can understand that Ashley's manipulating him and could probably say no at any time, but he still agrees with it, which I think reveals a lot more about him. So they sneak into their parents' house and want to rob them. Their mother comes home when they're not expecting, and we have a very, very awkward and tense scene where they kind of play along with it and go, oh, we're just visiting, and, we actually survived the apartment, which actually incidentally burned down mysteriously, and everybody inside was presumed dead, which, again, the water company almost certainly set the fire and just now still wants Andy and Leyley dead. So they try and play along nice with their parents, and we kind of get more revealed about their upbringing is that their dad is like a complete submissive doormat, very similar to Andy, and their mother is not psycho like Leyley, but she's manipulative and kind of uncaring, it seems. And it's revealed that, again, a reason why they're like this is that their mom had Andrew when she was only 15 and Leyley when she was 17, and decided to and they, managed to seem to be okay. And again, a further reason why we realize their parents are awful people is that we realize, like, they were out of their terrible apartment and now they live in a really nice house, which, again, for somebody that was like a teen mother, how are they affording this? And it's like, oh, they got a big check from the water company because of, like, a life insurance policy they took out on Andy and Leyley right before they were supposed to be presumed dead. So there's that. But, like, it's shown that the mom, which we don't know the mom and dad's first names, Like, she's like, well, Andy was actually such an easy child to raise, so we thought we could have one more. And then when it was realized that Ashley is very, very problematic, was a massive problem child, she basically just shoved her onto Andy and said, "You raise her. I'm not dealing with it." And so we kind of get more family drama like that. And Leyley just has had enough, and she pulls out a gun that she stole from the hitman. No, she stole it from the warden. Yeah, and it just says, "Okay, go in the basement, you and Dad." And they tie up their parents, and they commit satanic ritual, murder their parents, and eat them, and also methodically figure out how to dispose of the body, which again, it shows that these are not dumb people. This is why these are why a lot of the most serial killers, or a large number of serial killers, you haven't heard of because they didn't get caught, because they're often incredibly intelligent, and they're intelligent to understand how to dispose of the body. Of like, okay, we have to get rid of the teeth, we're gonna have to throw the bones in the ocean, and you know, we're gonna have to flush all the blood down the drain, and like, they methodically dismember and dispose of the bodies of their parents, and even eat them, as Ashley puts it, just so she can feel superior, because she's like, humans are on top of the food chain, so if I eat a human, I'm even on top of that. And what's so disturbing is the fact that, it's like in Resident Evil 7 when you're supposed to eat the disgusting pile of food in front of you and you're freaking out. That's not as scary as the fact that these two do it with no emotion, basically. That they've done basically one of the worst things you could possibly do. They committed matricide and patricide, and they have like no emotion about it. And that's what's really disturbing, is that, and afterwards there's like more dream sequences, and depending on certain actions, this is where the controversy comes in, because we can already tell that there's more than just a sisterly possessiveness over Andy from Ashley, that she likes him in a way that a sister should not like her brother, but it's all implied until, if you do certain things, there's a dream sequence where in their future they wake up together, and that's all I'm gonna say. And that's where the chapter ends, is that they've dumped their bodies in the ocean and they're gonna move on. So before I get to the controversy, again, just a brief thing about the gameplay is that it's an RPG horror maker game, so very simple movement, top-down perspective. Art style is really, really good. It's not pixel art. It's just kind of people say like it reminds me very much of like early 2000s cartoons, something like Invader Zim, something like that, right? Where everything's a little crooked, very kind of cartoony art styles you can see. And visually speaking, it's not that disturbing at all. Like, when they're dismembering the body of the cultist, it's not even remotely that graphic. It's just, it looks like it's like they have the expression of like they have to move a couch or something, which again makes the context of what they're doing more disturbing, because I feel like a lot of the art style it's supposed to be what they're seeing from their perspective, and that, again, what they're doing visually isn't really nowhere near as bad as it actually is to them. And that's what's so fascinating about the game, right? And this is where I'm going to kind of get into a bit of an analysis, is that what's scarier is, again, you're looking at these cute anime characters, right? Like, you have kind of the perfect, you have the goth little sister, and you have like the goth e-boy, and of course the internet visually is supposed to really like them. Like, they look like the doomer Wojak and the doomer female Wojak, right? But these protagonists are some of the most evil, despicable beings I've ever seen in a game, and it's where I like. This is where this breaks through the safe edge thing, right? Is that if you're gonna be edgy, like who knows, they might kill a priest or say some like Reddit tier atheist thing in the next chapter, but so far, like the boundaries they're pushing are not what people think that the irony is the people that want to be edgy, they have their own boundaries of what you're supposed to make fun of. Like you can make fun of religion all you want, but you can't make fun of like sexual minorities, right? You can't make fun of that. And like, oh, you know, you can be gay, do crime all you want, but the second you imply that this brother sister relationship might be more than just brother and sister, they freak out. Which I think is funny, is because knowing the internet, like, don't go looking this up, but there's a lot of quote unquote fan art of these characters, which, even if there wasn't the implied relationship between the two, you know darn well people would have made that anyway and memed about it. But then suddenly when the developer actually puts it in the game, they get mad. So it's like shining a mirror to these degenerates and saying, well, this is what you wanted, right? Why are you upset? And that kind of makes me like the game even more, that it's making the right people mad. That it's like going, if you want to be edgy, you go all the way, right? Like, the fact that they're not step siblings, they're not half siblings. No, they're full brother and sister that are adults, that are at least somewhat aware of what they're doing. And that's where true evil comes in, right? Is, at least in the Christian understanding, is that sinning, it's not, you know, there's an amount of culpability that comes with something that you do, like, in the heat of passion, in the heat of the moment, where you're not able to think clearly, or if you don't know something is wrong. It's why you go easier on children, because they're just learning about morality, or why animals are completely innocent. Real evil and sin happens when you know something is wrong, you have the full knowledge of what it is and what you're going to do, and you actively choose to do it. And that's everything that they're doing in The Coffin of Annie and Leyley. Their own psychological issues aside, they're fully they're both intelligent enough to understand what they're doing and decide to do it anyway. And what I like about this is that a lot of games would, like, break the fourth wall and make you feel like, and be like, oh, look how profound we are of making you making you feel like the bad guy because you have to do these bad things even though you didn't have a choice. Whereas this game is a lot more simple, because the vast majority of the game is a visual novel, with some light puzzle elements, and I'll get to that in a second. But you know, you don't feel bad as the player for doing this, because you're just going along with the story, and it almost makes you feel like you're tied up in a chair having to watch this, and or in a better sense, you're like watching a horror movie, really, which kind of removes the issue that a lot of horror games can have, wherein, okay, all this horrible stuff's happening to me, but I know that if I die in the game, I'm just gonna reset and it doesn't mean anything. Whereas in this, you don't know what's gonna happen. Like, these characters could, like, if you thought when you started the game that these characters will murder their parents and eat them without a second thought, okay, well, with a second thought, but, you know, they'll be able to do it with really very little emotion, you know, that says something. And that you're kind of strapped in for the ride, I think, makes it a lot more effective. Again, the clash between the art style, which is so, like, cutesy anime, very simple, combined with, like, the very vulgar and graphic writing, it shouldn't work as well as it does. And just on the gameplay again, is it does puzzles really well. They're very, very, very simple and logical and take very little effort to actually do, which I'm really bad at puzzle games, so I appreciated. Like, the point is not to frustrate you with gameplay, because that will just take you out of the experience. And again, also the music is really good as well. And it kind of brings me to the last aspect of it, which I hadn't thought about until recently, that what this game really is that it reminds me of a classic 19th century Gothic fiction. Like, this is very much a lot like Edgar Allan Poe. That you could see this story of these two traditionally Gothic, kind of reclusive young adults, a brother and sister, you know, go on a murder spree, and there's demons and supernatural stuff, and the world is kind of dark and twisted. That's very Gothic. That's very much the theme of a lot of Gothic stuff, where it's kind of the monster is an embodiment of psychological issues within the characters. Like Frankenstein, right? The point is not, oh, there's this like goofy monster running around. It's that, although in the book the actual creature is a lot scarier because he's super intelligent and creepy, but it's that a seemingly normal guy will actively choose to create a new life and play God. The horror of like the Cask of Amontillado is this guy is just so fed up with this other guy's BS, he will just methodically and actively decide, I'm just going to chain him down in this wine cellar and brick him up while he's screaming, and I'm not going to think anything about it. And that's what Andy and Leyley is like. It's this very Gothic, it's very dark, and it works very well. So I'm super excited for the next episode. I know what recently happened is that of course people got so mad. I think they're like the safe, edgy crowd on Twitter and online got so mad about a game. Because the thing is, like, if people are asking, Fritz, you're a Catholic, why are you reviewing this, like, filth? It's like, none of what they're doing and showing in the game is supposed to make you think this is okay. That's what's horrifying about it, right? Everything that they're doing, the incestuous parts of it, you know, it's not portrayed as good. It's portrayed as horrifying and awful. The problem is just the fact that the characters don't think of it as bad, and that's where the horror comes in. But yeah, so people tried to bully and dox the developer. Thankfully, they said that they will, they'll still continue doing the story and gameplay, but they're putting everything else, like customer service, to another developer, and they're retreating from the internet. So it shouldn't affect the actual release schedule of the game and its own development, thank goodness. But yeah, so The Coffin of Andy and Leyley is my game of the year, and I really hope I can come back in several months and be able to, like, have a nice edited video analysis of it. But yeah, I would, if you're okay with a lot of the themes that I've talked about, even though I've spoiled it, but I always find that even if you spoil a lot of a game, it can ruin the experience, but it's never quite the same as actually playing it yourself, and I haven't included any gameplay footage. So yeah, I would say the writing is fantastic, the music is great, and the visuals are great, even though it should clash with the themes, but it doesn't. So yeah, I would check it out. I give it like a 9-10 out of 10, honestly. So thank you for listening to me ramble about a meme game, and have a good one.